Okay, picture this. Imagine having your entire life perfectly mapped out. You've got a prestigious career lined up, incredibly loyal friends by your side, and you're about to marry the absolute love of your life. Now, I want you to imagine losing every single bit of it in one afternoon. The whole shebang, just gone. And why? Simply because you dared to say no to a war you didn't believe in. You are literally left with nothing. Well, it forces us to ask a pretty uncomfortable question, right? What is true courage? Is it just blindly following the crowd, or is it risking whatever you have left to save the exact people who abandoned you? So let's dive into this explainer of A.E. Mason's 1902 classic, The Four Feathers. You might recognize the title from a few of the film adaptations, but today we're really breaking down the original narrative to see how it completely redefines our traditional understanding of heroism. Part 1. The Ultimate Betrayal, A Fall from Grace. Right, so meet Harry Feversham. He's a young British officer who does the absolute unthinkable. See, he's born into this super rigid military family where fighting for the British Empire isn't just a career path, it is an absolute duty. But right on the eve of his deployment to the modest war in Sudan, he resigns. He decides he's going to stay in England and marry his fiancée. Now, to us today, we'd probably say, hey, it's a personal choice, but to his Victorian military peers, it is absolute treason. And it comes with this devastating physical marker of shame, the white feather. Back in this era, receiving a white feather was basically society's universal declaration that you were a coward. You are completely stripped of your honor and your manhood. And that brings us to the absolutely devastating weight of the number 4. In response to his resignation, Harry's 3 closest friends, his fellow officers, each mail him a white feather. But actually, scratch that. The real tragedy hits when a completely devastated Harry turns to his fiancée Ethne for some comfort, and she doesn't get it either. Heartbroken, she breaks off the engagement right on the spot, and she hands him the 4th and final feather. Just like that, in a single instant, Harry is entirely isolated. He is totally cut off from his society, his family, and his future. Part 2. Into the Furnace, a Solitary Descent. Now, what's really interesting about this timeline is that sitting there in total isolation with those 4 feathers, this profound truth suddenly hits Harry. He realizes he isn't afraid of dying. He's afraid of living a lie. He didn't want to fight a war he fundamentally didn't believe in just to keep up appearances. But now, with his reputation completely destroyed, he finds a new mission. And his descent is incredibly rapid. We go from a highly privileged officer to an absolute outcast in no time. But instead of just wallowing in pity, he travels to Sudan completely alone. He completely sheds his bright red uniform, his privilege, his past, and he disguises himself as an Arab laborer. He totally immerses himself in the brutal, scorching reality of the Sudanese desert. I mean, just imagine the sheer grit this takes. He's operating totally alone, deep behind enemy lines, in literally one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. And all the while, his former regiment, the very guys who cast him out, are marching directly into this disastrous, bloody conflict. Part 3. A Hero's Redemption, Earning Back the Feathers. Things quickly turn into an absolute nightmare for the British forces. They get overwhelmed, and Harry's former friends fall into mortal danger. But Harry? He's already there, just waiting in the shadows. Step 1, he tracks down his best friend Jack, who has actually been blinded in battle and just left for dead. Still wearing his disguise, Harry protects him and literally guides him across the scorching desert to a British outpost, and then slips away before Jack can even recognize his voice. Then comes Step 2. When another friend, Trench, is thrown into this hellish, starving prison camp in Omdurman, Harry intentionally gets himself captured. No joke, he gets captured just so he can infiltrate the prison, keep Trench alive, and orchestrate this seemingly impossible escape. So the crucial point here is how Harry handles all of this. He continually risks his own life for the very men who openly condemned him, operating entirely from the shadows without any official backup. But here's the absolute most brilliant detail of the entire story. Every single time Harry saves one of them, he secretly slips one of those white feathers back into their pocket or their belongings. It's this incredibly powerful silent message. It's basically telling them that the coward they so confidently threw out of society is the exact same man who just descended into hell to save their lives. Part 4. The True Meaning of Bravery, Redefining the Hero. And this brilliantly illustrates the core conflict when he gets back to England. The aftermath is just staggering. The men who condemned Harry now owe him their very lives. He has successfully and miraculously returned all 4 feathers. This forces everyone, including his super strict military father and his former fiancée, Ethne, to completely reevaluate everything. They realize he possessed a strength they couldn't even fathom. It perfectly illustrates two very different kinds of courage, doesn't it? On one hand, you have physical bravery, that common battlefield obedience where you fight shoulder to shoulder with your regiment just because you're told to. But then you have moral and selfless courage, that incredibly rare ability to stand entirely alone against your peers, accept complete social ruin for your convictions, and then literally risk everything for the very people who hate you. I really want you to let this quote sink in for a second. The moral courage to stand alone against your peers is the rarest bravery of all. This explanator, drawn straight from Matson's brilliant narrative, completely flips the traditional war story on its head. It strips away all the uniforms, the shining medals, and the societal applause. It reveals that true heroism isn't about seeking glory at all. True heroism actually demands intense, unseen, and entirely unrewarded personal sacrifice. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought. It's super easy for us to sit back and judge the characters in a story. But try putting yourself in Harry's shoes for a minute. In a world that constantly demands we conform to the crowd, follow the expected path, and avoid those white feathers of social rejection at absolutely all costs, would you have the moral courage to stand alone? Think about it.